welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And we're here today at Buckeye Game Fest with David Thompson.
The David Thompson.
Yes, that's fair, with a capital T. We are here courtesy of Blue Panther Games and Marshall Enterprises, so we're very grateful for their sponsorship for this. But I wanted to have the opportunity to sit down with David, who is relatively local to Buckeye Game Fest.
Yep.
And kind of talk through some different designs you might have going on the horizon, upcoming projects, because we've played a lot of your games, and even had some played today, things like the Undaunted series, the Valiant Defense series from DVG, lots of good stuff out, but what can we look forward to coming in the future?
Yeah, so I guess what's funny is it doesn't seem like it, but Undaunted Stalingrad just came out recently, right?
Yeah,
right.
We're still in the middle of it.
Yeah.
We're on like scenario 7.
Yeah. So it's, that came out late last year, so it's been out for a few months now. So that's cool. Still answering a lot of questions about that.
That's a big box,
it's
man.
huge. Yeah, it's massive. Yeah. And yeah, from a design perspective, certainly that's the thing that I spent by far the most time and effort and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see that being well received. Undaunted Battle of Britain is coming out in a couple of months. So
June, right?
June is, release is like mid-June is the
Okay.
release date for it. So it'll be right around the time of Origins, which is great. I'll be at Origins running demos in the Armchair Dragoons area for Battle of Britain, so that's awesome. Some folks here had a chance to play it because I have it's a proper copy. It was just an early copy they sent to me, and it's been well received, I think, in terms of trying to thread the needle of it still needs to be an Undaunted game, so you can't diverge too much from the system, but at the same time, aerial combat is very different than what it's been before, right? So,
Yes.
trying to, like I said, thread that needle of what does that look like. And of course, the other thing is there's a lot of really good World War II aerial combat games. So does the world really need another one, right? Probably it doesn't, but hopefully people can find something in it that they find interesting and enjoyable.
It looks great, but it also does look very different from what a regular Undaunted game looks like. So I think people are going to have, I don't know, it's not just a reskin. I think this is
It
one
has
of
hexes.
the most divergent ones.
It has
there
hexes.
is.
It has actual proper hexes.
There's a lot to explore there that looks awesome. I love aerial combat, love air war games, so I'm very excited for that to kind of hit the stores and for everyone to get their hands on that too.
And the newest mechanic it's the comm.
Yeah, so there's two things that are very different about it, right? Like the actual hexes are not that important because the normal Undaunted has offset squares, basically the same thing. But the aircraft do have they have facing, right? So regular Undaunted has no line of sight, it has no facing, so that's very different. And the way in which the aircraft move and maneuver is obviously very different than anything in Undaunted before. So that's one big difference. And the other is, for the most part, all the fighters in the game are divided up into sections, so 2 aircraft operating together, and you really want to keep those 2 aircraft together, right? You want them operating in cohesion with one another. And so the game doesn't have this concept of scouting and moving around the board like regular Undaunted with Fog of War, but what it does have is this concept of section comms between the 2 aircraft, sort of taking the place of the squadron, right? And so if you operate with those 2 aircraft too far apart, you're going to take what's called Discord, which essentially operates like Fog of War.
So Discord me.
Yeah.
Not Fog of War me.
Yes.
All right, I Discord myself.
I enjoy that we turned Fog of War into a verb in Undaunted. That's how we use it anyway. So that's
Cool.
very exciting, and obviously the stunning artwork on there as well continues as a hallmark of that series. Which,
How many scenarios does it have?
I think there's 10.
Okay.
I think it's 10. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know I mentioned this to you guys yesterday, but one note I will make is I had the good fortune of actually playing it with my daughter recently, which is cool because it was the first time any of my kids had ever played an Undaunted game. So
Okay.
that was really fun.
Nice.
So
this also blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
How many that it's been, and how much time you must have dedicated to that this first time.
yeah, and it's funny because I play my games with my kids a lot, right? Both as them play testing and just playing the actual proper games. For whatever reason, Undaunted just, when War Chest is there and it kind of scratches a little bit of a similar itch.
Sure.
And it's easier for the kids.
Yeah.
We've always done War Chest, but I needed her to play Battle of Britain with me because it would have been 2 years since I had played it, so I needed to jog my memory about some of the specifics. So.
Just to get ready to demo it.
Yeah.
Nice.
So moving forward from Undaunted, what else can we be looking forward to?
So the main thing that I brought here, and I would get in trouble if we didn't talk about it, right, is Night Witches. So that's something I'm working on with Liz Davidson. She and I have been working on it now for, I don't know, 6-9 months. We had been talking about it for years. Liz and I are super close friends. So it's something we had been just, hey, we're going to do this thing. We're going to do this thing. And we both just happen to have a little bit of time around the same time period where we started on it, right? Which is half the battle is starting something and then obviously getting to completion. So we've been meeting pretty regularly, usually about once every couple of weeks. We have a very similar sort of design philosophy and the way we like to work together. So we really good partnership or collaboration there.
And when you say meet, I know she lives in D.C.
She lives in Atlanta. In Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta,
yeah.
and you live in
and I live
Ohio.
in yeah. So when I say meet, it's like 4 a.m. We're on Tabletop Simulator.
Okay.
Online.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Everything's online.
Playing and discussing and
We had actually not physically met. We've only met a couple of times in person ever, but we had not met in person about the game physically until we were in Circle DC last month, Kevin Bertram's convention in DC. So we got to be there together with a prototype of it and demo it with a bunch of people, and then I got a chance to do it here.
so Night Witches is
Yeah, so Night Witches it's a game about a Soviet women night bomber unit. So there were 3 women Soviet air units during World War II. There was a night bomber unit, a day bomber unit, and like an air defense interceptor type unit. Eventually, the other 2 would allow some men into those. But the night bomber unit, from every 5 person from like the grounds crew to the commander, were all women, and they stayed all women the entire war.
very progressive for the Soviets in the 1940s.
Yeah, I mean, and this is goes beyond my understanding of some of the nuanced politics. But I mean, obviously, coming out of the revolution, the Soviet Union was very progressive in terms of women's rights and stuff in many ways. Right now, then you get to the whole. Stalin's not a very necessarily progressive person. So
take away all human rights.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, in terms of women in the Soviet Union during World War II, the roles they were playing, by far the most diverse of any major power that was in the war, right? So, a lot of different things that women did in the Soviet Union. But for this game, so you're night bomber pilots, you're flying a little biplane, basically a crop duster, doing harassment nighttime raids against the Germans right along the front line, so super dangerous. And so the game is a solitaire or 2-player co-op game, right? Plays super quick. You play a mission in like 30 minutes. It's a campaign-based game, right? So you're trying to make it through the war, preferably with the same crew the entire time, right? Disaster can strike, but it's got a sense of progression where the better you do, you have opportunity to get upgrades and things like that. But the other thing that's cool about the game is ultimately you're trying to do what they did, which is just achieve guards status. So in the Soviet Union, a unit achieving guard status is elite, right? And they did truly achieve that, right, because of the number of sorties they were flying. And they were flying up to like 14 sorties a night.
Wow.
An individual crew, right? So they were just quick turning all night long. So you're trying to achieve that same status. But for you to do that, you have to do very well, and the better you do in the game, the harder the game is. It's pushing back at you. So,
got it.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, for anyone who doesn't know, Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, go check out her channel. She's amazing. She does great reviews of a lot of solitaire games. My understanding, her expertise is like she knows an absolute ton about like ancients and Romans. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is this something else that she is like? I'm surprised it wasn't a Roman game. It was her first
Well,
kind of
so
foray.
I won't speak for.
Well,
I
Rome
won't
didn't
speak
have
for
planes. So,
Well, we had to have an intersection of interests too, right?
Sure.
Like, if it was like, hey, let's design a game about Rome, I'm like, I don't have anything to contribute, Liz.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. No, but I think you're right. She's an ancient. Her PhD is in ancients, and so she's brilliant, and both in terms of the historical side, but also, even though this is her first game design, clearly she knows
Obviously,
games,
yes,
right?
yes.
So it's been awesome working with her. It's been a new like sort of perspective, but at the same time, we have a very similar sort of matching style. So that's been good. I would not be surprised if Liz continues to do more game design stuff, probably in that sort
I
of
would love
regions.
it. The way
cool.
the detail that she talks about something like Pendragon, because she knows everything about all the events and stuff. I'm like, I want to tap into that and see that in games because her knowledge is incredible.
I think my first experience with her was over COVID and I watched her do Agricola playthroughs, not Agricola the Euro game, Agricola the worst Euro game that's a war game, but her intricate knowledge of the 7 or 8 different tribes, the Brigantes, and was very cool.
Right.
And she did a great job of playing through it and explaining. And
and the difference between her and all of us is, if we're playing a game, we would go maybe read about it or whatever. She just already knows all that.
Right, because she's read 40 books on it.
Yeah. What I know is from the game that I played about.
Yeah. So who's going to publish that one?
So I can't.
Okay.
I could say that
okay.
we've talked to a publisher. We don't have anything on official yet.
Okay.
So, but
If I were a betting man, I would say DVG or Fort Circle Games.
Interesting.
I didn't look at David's face to see the response because I didn't want to get him in trouble.
Yeah, okay.
But
GMT. Compass.
let's just go down the list. Well, looking forward to that one. We saw the prototype. We unfortunately didn't get a chance to play, but we had other things going on. But look forward to that. Another question I wanted to ask you, because we kind of skipped over it after we were talking about Battle of Britain. What do you think the future of Undaunted might be? We had a lengthy conversation about this walking to and from the North Market yesterday.
Yeah.
And whatever you can't say, don't say.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah. I definitely can't say. So I can say a couple of things, right? First off, we're just finishing up the game that's 2 games removed from Battle of Britain. So like the one after it and the one after that are already done.
Okay.
The design is done, right?
Yeah.
And I know I've told you guys this before, and I've said this often. Working with Osprey is awesome because they keep you on a very tight schedule and they adhere to the schedule.
Okay.
And so what that allows for is they can do proper development. They have fantastic art. The production is really good. So it's not a rush job ever, right? But that's the thing that forces us to be 2 games ahead of time. And so what that does, and I know this infuriates some people, is it's like, well, why doesn't Battle of Britain have solitaire or whatever? And it's like, well, we were designing Battle of Britain when Reinforcements came out.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? So
And
it
you
takes a
didn't
little
even
bit-
design the solitaire version
Right.
for
Yeah.
that was David Turksey, right?
David, it was kind of to kind of give credit where credit's due. I think David Turksey did some of the original conceptualization.
Okay.
But David Digby was the guy who did all the hard work, brute force.
Got it.
Because if you've ever played that solo system, it's super intricate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Every single scenario is super tailored. So, but yeah, we didn't.
Lots of
I
work.
didn't design that, right? And I don't design solo variants for multiplayer games I've worked on.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm going to do a solo game, it's going to be solo from the start. So it takes a little bit of time to turn the ship to sort of react to what people really want and don't want and that kind of stuff. I can say that a lot of people have asked for Undaunted Pacific, right? But I mean, one thing that has to be
Yes,
true.
yes, please.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
But one thing that has to be true is it can't be a reskin, right? If you go through the series, every single one brings something very different to the table.
Yes.
So it'd have to be something very different.
Amphibious landings.
Yeah, right. It could be, right? And I've asked this question when people say they want Pacific, what does that mean? Does that mean you zoom way out and it's this you're controlling a fleet and it's naval battles, or is it amphibious land? There's all sorts of different views of what Pacific would mean.
Yeah.
Whatever we do, it has to be different enough that first Trevor and I enjoy making it, right? Because we're going to spend a lot of time making it. So it needs to be something for us to feel like this is contributing something to the series. We enjoy spending our time doing it. So I won't talk in specifics, but I'll just say that we won't come out with a game that's like a reskin version of Daunted.
So it'll be something new, groundbreaking, and that's cool.
Yeah.
So we're not just paying more money for the same thing. Right. We're paying more money for something different.
Something different.
Like Stalingrad.
Right. And like Battle of Britain, right?
Yeah.
Those feel very different from what came before.
You could use Battle of Britain and do air naval in the Pacific.
Yeah, so you could, if you wanted to go like small scale, you could do a kind of a merge, and that would be different, right? And that would be interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
So, let's talk a little bit about Valiant Defense series, because we're at 1, 2, 3, 4 of those.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon for that, if anything?
So I think there's a couple of major things, right? So one is the next game will be designed by Vince Cooper, not by me. I think Vince has been pretty vocal about, I don't think I'm revealing anything officially that it's Guadalcanal is the topic, right? I think Vince has talked about that before, so I'm not stealing his thunder. So Vince will be the designing the next one. So it'll be the first game that's not designed by me. It'll be the first game that's a different scale, right? Because every Valiant Defense game up until now has been skirmish scale, one person is a counter. So to do Guadalcanal right, he has to zoom out a little bit. So it'll be bringing some new things. I think a lot of people have been interested in going back into like a Pavlov's house style, like where it has the multi-focus, and he loves Pavlov's house, so it's got more of that into it.
Okay.
So that'll bring something like that back to the series. Nils is going to continue to do the art for the series, right? So
Excellent.
Clearly that is a massive, objectively, I would argue, upgrade over what was in the past. So Nils that's fantastic. So I look moving forward as the series is kind of like a partnership between the three of us, right? Vince is, I think, interested in continuing to design more titles in the series.
Okay.
Nils is going to be the artist, and I will still work with them in the series in general, and I'll occasionally design stuff too.
Sure.
So I'll come back. I'm not actually currently doing the design work. I'm researching a couple of different topics that could be a game later on. And I will say that one thing that I just keep coming back to is the Siege of Jodaville, which I think is really interesting. So it would, if I do that, that would be the first non-World War II game in the series, right? So
and I think that
the
would be
most modern
fantastic.
games I've ever made, right?
Yeah.
So I don't usually do a lot of modern stuff, but I think that could be done in a respectful way. So.
Cool.
Anything else that's coming up on the horizon?
Yeah, I tried to think about that. Well, okay, well, of course, Witchcraft, not a war game, right? So people that know Resist, it came out last year from Salt and Pepper. It was their first publication that they did that was not a localization in Spain, right? They're a Spanish publisher, but they wanted to start doing their own original titles. And so Resist came out with them, so it's about the Spanish Maquis, obviously.
Great game, by the way.
Yeah,
very fun.
It was
very
really
hard.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
I'm terrible at it.
Yeah, it is very, very difficult. That is true. And so it was really well received to include outside of the war game space, right? So the solitaire, non-war game solitaire community embraced it too. And so we said, there's an opportunity here where we could go back and leverage the same system, but maybe do something a little bit different with it. And so that's what we're doing with Witchcraft. And of course, it has Albert Monte's art.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I'll tell you guys, when you're working with people like Albert or Niels, and you're trying to design a game, it's super, super intense pressure, because it's like, well, this game's probably, it's never going to live up to the art.
It's going to look good.
It's going to look good. People are going to buy it for the art. They're going to play the game like, this game kind of sucks, but at least it's pretty. So, that's stressful. But Witchcraft is going to be on Game Found in a couple of months. So if people were, into Resist and they're interested in that theme, that's coming out. Obviously, he's doing Chung Ho with Jeff Engelstein. That's on the P500, right? So
we haven't really even talked that much about that.
Yeah,
so.
it's in an interesting spot right now. It's made the cut in the P500, so now it's just in the sort of like waiting for art queue kind of thing. And Jeff and I are still dabbling with it. We've gotten a couple of really good rounds of playtest feedback on it. So we're just kind of putting it through the last paces. So I would say, I think that's, obviously there's a ton of other stuff in the works, but I just can't talk about it. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you one question. Where do you find the time to do what you do? Because I know you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
You have a family. Because we get asked this question a lot. We've discovered time travel, but I don't know about you.
Yeah. So first of all, it's, for game design for me, it's somewhere in between like a super passionate hobby and a second job, right? So it straddles between those two. And it's what I spend the vast majority of my time doing when I'm not with my family or at work, right? So, when I lived in the UK, I was going to Cambridge a lot and meeting with the design group there that I really got into design with.
Sorry, and, you dropped this.
But so about the time we were getting ready to move back to the US, my wife was like, "Hey, after work, you're going to Cambridge a lot and you're meeting with your design, and that's great, but you're spending a lot of time doing that."
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, let's do some work balance here. So that's when I started trying to sort of changing my schedule so that I wake up early. And so that time between like 4 and 6:30 when I get ready for work is solely designed for design time. And I know it's going to be, 2 to 3 really good hours, 7 days a week, right? Which winds up, that's adds up, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll usually do one night a week where I usually meet with somebody, usually Trevor, to work on Undaunted or whatever the project we're working on, right? So yeah, it usually winds up being like 25 hours a week, but it doesn't impact work and it doesn't impact the family by doing it that way.
Okay.
So it's just compartmentalizing.
It's the same way we do it. We just have to squeeze it in here and there. I think in our early days, particularly, we ended up playing, a game during the 4th of July barbecue after everything was done, or at Thanksgiving. Now it's a little more, but we just squeeze it in where we can. We know the wives are doing this, so hey, it's our opportunity. Let's get together.
And the thing that I like, that I really enjoy, that I sacrifice in that is gaming, right?
Yeah.
So I only game once a month.
Okay, so the thing you forgot was...
Yeah, so I was going to mention General Orders, right? We're talking about new games coming out. General Orders is coming out from Osprey. It's coming out in, I think Spiel is when it's technically supposed to be released, so October-ish. But the plan, if all goes right, is we'll have copies at Gen Con to preview. So
Nice.
Very excited about that. It's a sort of an abstract war game, 2-player game. And the original concept was, hey, let's make a worker placement war game, right? Whatever that means, right?
Sure.
So we'll have it. Now, I want to give credit where credit's due. There is a Halls of Hegra is coming, and Halls of Hegra is an awesome solitaire game that has some worker placement stuff in it. So, because when Osprey had released it, they're like, oh, it's the first worker place. Like,
No.
Well, Halls of Hegra has got it, and I think there's a Napoleon game that people have been talking about.
We own a copy, Conquest of Napoleon, from Fellowship of Simulations.
Right.
We just got it a couple of months ago. We still have not played it.
Right.
I would have brought it here had I reviewed the rules and kind of been comfortable. I just haven't got around to it yet.
It looks cool.
4-player
Funny that
worker
those are all
placement. It looks very
European-based
interesting.
companies
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It looks very good.
Yeah.
So one other thing I feel guilty as the content creator here sometimes, because I often say, oh, the newest David Thompson design, right? When the reality is there's Trevor Benjamin, who is as big a part, as undaunted as you are, and others. So maybe talk a little bit about Roger and Trevor, and you've already mentioned Liz. Don't give her any more coverage, but that's good. Good job, Liz. But Trevor and Roger.
Of course. So there's I kind of view co-design. Obviously, Trevor is my brother from another mother, right? Like best friend in life. And Roger's kind of in a similar camp because we're co-workers. He lives in D.C., but we work for the same agency. We also lived in the UK at the same time, so I'm very close with him also. So Roger and Trevor and I all work together on Resist. Roger and I work together on Sniper Elite. So and we've got some other things that are in the works too.
Okay.
And the three of us are working on Witchcraft together again. And then of course Trevor and I do the Undaunted stuff. We've a War Chest and General Orders, etc. So those two I work with all the time. I've always got something going on with each of them. Of course, we talked about Liz with Night Witches, and then Jeff with Junka. And I think you will see more of that in the future, where there's some partnerships that, hey, this is Jeff with Junka, and that maybe we'll do something in the future, but it's not going to be a constant thing, right?
Right.
But like we were talking about, every once in a while, somebody will say like a David Thompson game, and you try to correct them and like, oh no, but obviously, and like you said, there's no Undaunted without Trevor.
Yeah.
Right?
And no one says that with an evil intent.
Right.
They just know you.
Right.
And you mentioned Trevor in other circles. It's that's a Trevor Benjamin design.
Right.
And who's this David Thompson guy?
Right.
Yeah.
And to be completely fair, most of the time, what people should say is, oh, that's a Trevor Benjamin, but David Thompson. Right?
You're too modest.
He overcame
his handicap there.
Yeah.
But I think it's like us, we're partnership and his yang and my yang, and we work well together. And I think you have the same thing with these other people, and I think it's important to make sure they get the recognition. I've never personally met Trevor nor Roger. I've not met Jeff Engelstein. I talked to Mark Herman and talked to him about Jeff, but anyway, good to recognize your partners and your game design friends, and I think that's important. So anything else you have?
I don't think so. That was exhaustive. I appreciate you sitting down with us and taking that time, and also confirming that you do all that work, and so far, not a robot. So
is there a clone?
Maybe we'll just turn it all over to ChatGPT.
Okay, well, there you go.
Let's design a game in the style of David Thompson.
And
there you go.
GPT.
It's done.
So
they've started writing our blog posts, so it's good.
So yes, thank you very much for sitting down, taking time with us. Lots to explore on the horizon, lots to enjoy in the back catalogue if you haven't played a lot of these. So hopefully we can see a lot more exciting stuff coming in the future. But thank you very much, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I've been Alexander from PlayerSafe.com.
And I'm Grant.